Well, I am back with Citadel of Blood, and it's like a drug or something just pulling me in. Once I got sucked into doing DeathMaze, I got sucked right back into this whole system and pulled out Citadel. As I mentioned on my channel update, started rereading the rules, which are basically the same as DeathMaze, and remembered, oh yeah, there's this, that, and the other thing. And before I knew it, I had it out, and now I'm gonna discuss it a little bit here. Couple of points, not going over the rules because the death maze, it is the death maze system with just a few other features, and I'm simply going to go over some of the other features. There are more things that you can find. So there are mirrors. This is a mirror counter. Mirrors become important because unlike in Death Maze where you're just going through, collecting stuff and getting out, here you have a goal, and the goal is to find this location of the Hellgate, which is a place of great vortex, I guess, of great evil, and it is guarded by the unknown here, and there are an unknown number of unknowns that are guarding it. You need to locate it and destroy it and then get out. And in the context of locating it, it's a dungeon after all, and this game has the provision for different levels. There's up to 3 different levels, so you have staircases that you can pull. There are mirrors, which I actually pulled right away, as I'll show you. They function to help you start to locate where that Hellgate is. There's artwork that you can encounter. There is furniture that you can encounter. There are many, many more monsters. I have the monsters up here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of them are the same from Death Maze, and many of them are not, and they have special effects. There's a lot of monsters with special effects. The one thing that's a little problematic is that the monster counters are double-sided, which is great because it adds to the variety, but it's really difficult to figure out, and, unfortunately, the rules don't tell you. It would have been nice if we could look at the rules and see the opposite side, but the vampire is actually not the back of the troll counter, so that's a little unfortunate, but whatever. The party here, now there's more magic here. Let me just pull these here. Well, let me say this. There are a bunch of fan-made apparatus that are available online for this game. I actually find most of them unnecessary and unnecessarily complicating, but these spell cards I've printed out, and they're very useful because they give the spell value, and I'm assigning spells here to my party. In this game, the rule that I do not use, well, let me just say this, back to the rules here. Very nicely, we are told, pretty much at the beginning, 2.3, the rules are designed to allow the players to easily modify them and invent their own. Players are encouraged to modify these rules to suit their own taste, etc. If you follow my channel, you know that I often do this anyway, but in this game in particular, I definitely do. I completely abandon the one rule that assigns or basically limits the amount of magic spells that are available to a user based on a die roll, because this is useful, I guess, in theory, if you're doing some kind of campaign game where when you start the game you do a die roll and it's a certain phase. I think it's a color, or I'm not even sure what they call it because I never used it. I don't like sort of arbitrary restrictions on game mechanics and game things that are in the game for no reason. I mean, this, I suppose, works if you're actually playing a campaign and going back in and out of the dungeon, and then it's meant to change, so the amount of magic any character gets changes. But honestly, I'm not playing that way. I've never played this game more than once in a row, even though I've played it many times over the years. So, in any case, the magic assignment here is on these cards and based on the values that are given in the chart. There are also, in addition to many more monsters than Death Maze, there are many more available heroes than Death Maze, and they have predetermined values. So you can choose your hero. They suggest you do it randomly. I sort of put together a party here, and they have the predetermined weapons and skills that are given at the outset. the magic values, the wound points, etc. And so I've got this set up here. I'm just going to keep track of this on the side, and the spell cards are useful to refer to because they're written on here. Again, this game can be played on a clipboard, and that's what I'm going to do now. I was going to come in sort of midway through the game to show you some combat and exploration that happens when I've got a lot of stuff and, both positive and negative wounds as well as treasures and whatever. But the first counter that I pulled after placing the Hell Gate entry, let's see, what is it called? The Gateway of Evil, into the Fortress of Evil was a mirror. And mirrors in this game are special because they are necessary to help you locate where that Hellgate is. And the first mirror that you encounter, I don't see that there's a restriction on placing a mirror as the first chit if that's what you pulled, which I did. That the first mirror that you encounter, you are rolling on the mirror table, and I'm using for this game a teeny tiny die, and I'm going to roll it and see what we get on the mirror table. We rolled a 4. Looking this up on the table, it gives us the value that is going to be the level where this Hellgate is. And remember, this dungeon has more than one level. It has up to 3 levels. So with a die roll of 4, we know that the Hellgate is going to be located on level 3. How do we get to different levels of the dungeon? Well, we draw chits, and this is a single draw cup that is made with all the chits in them. They're double-sided, and there are many, many different options because of that. When we draw a staircase, we can place it, and that can be used to go up and down into another level. Now, as I said, everything is double-sided, so you can have the choice. This is, for example, a staircase. It's a room. You're going to need to deal with the door and possibly dealing with some traps. If you didn't feel equipped at that moment, you could place it as a corridor and not have to do that. And there's also many more. The percentage of places that have items, I think this is furniture, to explore and get treasure and whatnot is pretty high in this game. So the fact that it's double-sided offers you more variability and, again, a little extra level of strategy in terms of having some control over what you want to deal with at that particular time. But so now we know the overall structure of this game. We got to get to the 3 levels because it's going to be on the 3rd level that the Hellgate is located. And somewhere when we're down there and we encounter another mirror, we will go back to this table and roll again, and that is when we will then be looking at the second value, whatever our die roll is, to tell us how many segments away from that Hellgate we are. And once we get to that, we then need to defeat that and to defeat the unknown ones that are protecting it in order to win the game. Well, I'm coming back right away with a correction about this mirror because obviously I cannot place this thing because it is in a room and we just entered the Fortress of Evil, so there's no exit to this room. Now, I don't remember whether other mirrors, or they're all mirrors, are just in a room with no other exits, but this one certainly is. So having pulled this, the only legal placement for it is as a corridor. So indeed, what I needed to do was to place it as a corridor and then move on from there. And when I did that, the next counter that I pulled was this room with a statue in it. Now, again, I could have chosen to place that as a corridor or whatever, but of course I would like to investigate this statue. So I placed it as such as a statue. There was no trap door. I didn't mention that earlier, but you're doing a door check. Trap, there was no trap door. Then to investigate that statue, you roll on the features table, and we came up with the fact that it is a demon statue. And what this then means is we need to roll on the table again to determine what demon is going to be represented. So when I rolled on the feature table for a statue, I got a 4, and so this is a statue of a demon, and the instruction there is that the investigating party member then needs to roll on this table again to see which god this is, or which demon god this statue is you know, in reverence to, and then I guess there's going to be effects from that. So we need to take a look at our party and decide who the investigating character is going to be. And this is where, again, you can see there's levels of involvement and detail in this game that just don't exist in DeathMaze, because the individual characters can act, and not knowing or remembering what the various effects are. It's a demon statue, so I'm going to assume they're bad. I think I will choose to have maybe my Zurich dwarf. He's got an 8 health. This guy's got a 10 health, but just go through a little bit of a few of the spells that I chose. And as a reminder, there's 2 types of spells. There's non-combat spells, which are cast when you're wandering around or discovering things or whatever, and then combat spells, which are only able to be cast during combat. And the spell cost is a cost in health. So when you're casting this spell of 1, you're taking down your health by 1. This one, this dwarf here with the 10 health, I gave him the most costly spell. It costs 4 health. It's a combat spell, and you can, in effect, deal a ton of wounds to a monster. You would really want to use this sparingly because it's going to cost you in health. Now, I do have, somebody's got a healing spell here. This healing spell is held by my other dwarf, Zurich, and I did my roll here to see how many times I could use it, and I got a 5, so that's pretty good because it's a d6 roll. So he could heal his party member, but you know, again, it can only happen 5 times, and to do the healing, you're rolling 1d3 plus 1, so you're rolling, you know, your d6 divided by 2 plus 1, so you can only heal so much with this thing. Nevertheless, these are the spells available, and as such, I think I'm going to have, my, let's see, negotiation spell. I just don't know what I'm going to get with that. I don't really remember what the features of this table could be, whether it means a monster could come out. Well, let's see. This is another healing spell I have. I've got this charm spell, which any monster in the first row, maybe if a monster comes out, I don't know. I guess I'm going to have this Gislan dwarf investigate here. I think I've messed up my spells already. I'm going to have him doing the investigation. He's kind of my lead. He's like my lead character anyway in terms of how I set this up. Of course, you can regroup your party in between combat, but for right now, I'm going to say that this guy is investigating, and therefore he's going to be rolling on that table and coming up with a 5, which means, let's see, what does that mean? This means that it is the altar to Lurage. Let me look up and see what that is. All right, well, this is a shrine to the Marquis of Archers. There is going to be a resistance check, and we can see here, I'll just pull up here on what explains about the altars. If in the room stands an altar to one of the 6 demons worshipped by the inhabitants of the Citadel, the character who investigates the altar will use the following procedure. He must make a resistance check, and if he passes, the altar gives him a benefit. If he fails, he is cursed. Now, actually, I wasn't considering this when I was deciding who would investigate. By my resistance value on my dwarf is 3, and that's actually the highest resistance value I've got. So in order for him to pass, he's got to roll a 3 or greater, a 3 or less is going to be a pass. So the higher your resistance value, the more opportunities you have to pass. He's basically got a 50% chance, and he rolled a 3. So he passed, and he's going to get the benefit. Again, this benefit, I'm a little confused about it because it says he gets a +3 bow skill regardless of whether or not he possesses a bow. So does that mean he gets a bow? I don't know. Or does he get a +3 on some other? He's got an axe and a hammer. I have no idea. I'm going to think about it and just make a decision, I guess, and move on. But so we encountered the statue, and our dwarf mounted a great resistance to its charms, and we are on our way down into the dungeon. I'm going to stick with sort of live to video play here for at least another turn or so. I'm going to pull something out. Oh, staircase. Wow. All right. So another decision. We got a staircase, and we also have the option of not using the staircase if we don't feel equipped yet to start our way, make our way down into the dungeon. When we get to the second level, there are going to be modifications to the monsters that come out. And what this means is that we would need to be referring to the level chart here to see that once we get to, right now we're on level 1, we just started the game. Once we get to level 2, the wounds, for example, that are dealt by monsters get a +2 modifier. The monsters get a combat bonus, a negotiation value. Well, they don't increase beyond what they already are. You get more treasure, and you don't get more experience. But honestly, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. I haven't collected enough things, and I'm just not going to, as appealing as it might seem on the one hand to be able to get to the second level already, I'm not going to do that. So I will not be placing this as a staircase. Instead, I'm going to place it as a corridor, and let's see, I guess legally I can do it like this. I could do it like this, or some configuration thereof, and I guess I don't know, I'm going to place it like this. Why not? Why not? There's my placement. We're walking through the corridor. What we need to do next, because we're entering a new area for the first time, is we need to do a wandering monster check, and that is, monsters are present on a roll of 1, 2, or 3. We rolled a 6, so no monsters here. And there is no other feature right here, so there's really nothing else to be done. There's no treasure to get. Really nothing else to do except moving through, continuing to move through. I'm going to be pulling again here. I keep messing this up. It's kind of, just move this to the side a little bit. All right. I'm going to pull here, really not looking. And we got this. See what the options are. Oh, blank corridor. Another blank corridor. Not too much going on. Now that I'm deciding to film, I think we're going to go this way. I should be keeping this. Whoops. Should be keeping this in line with where we are. And again, we're going to just do a roll to see. 1, 2, 3, wandering monster. No, it's clear. Not much going on, of course, once I decide to. A lot happened right away, and now not much. So we wandered for a sort of uncharacteristically long period of time, 3 full segments here with nothing happening. There are corridors with nothing in it. There was a room that did not have any trapdoors on either side. And then we finally pulled this counter. Now, the one side is a corridor, but I don't want another blank corridor. I want this. This is a room behind a door, and it has some art in it. And we're going to investigate that art. We certainly first have to deal with whether or not there is a trap on the door. So we're going to place it here, and again, I just want to point out, in doing this, as you can see, because of the placement in the corridors here, we will need to walk in here, do whatever happens, walk back out, backtrack, and come back. There is going to be another die roll for more wandering monsters, because they could potentially be coming around here, but that's the way it is. In retreading previously explored segments, I think you only encounter a wandering monster on a roll of 1 instead of 1, 2, or 3. So, it's, well, with just my luck, we'll get them then. But in any case, we haven't had any so far. So first we're going to do to see whether this door is trapped or not. And we rolled a 6, not trapped. We're walking in there, and we are choosing somebody to investigate the artwork, and we're told that in the room is a beautiful piece of magical artwork. There are 6 artwork results listed on the feature table. So we're going to choose our investigator, and again, I think we're just going to go with that dwarf. Why not? And we will be rolling on the feature table to see what we get there with the art, and I will roll in it here. And we rolled a, what is that? 3. We rolled a 3, and let's see, what is 3 on the feature table, if I can bring this in without ruining my dungeon. Feature table. Die roll of 3. We're looking for art. It's a statue. Interesting. We had a statue before that was an altar, and now we have a piece of art that is a statue. All right. We read the effects of that, and it tells us that for a statue, there's a large statue in the room. Roll on the statue column of the feature table to determine its nature and effects. So we're going to do another roll again, and we are getting a 3 this time. So looking back here at the table, usually we're not just at the same table, but such as it is. So we rolled a 3. We're looking now at the statue column, which is what we looked at before, and we find that it is a medallion. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. That sounds pretty good, actually. Let's see what the medallion is going to be for us. Medallions. The second die roll under the medallion column determines the effects of the medallion found. A character must be delegated to test the medallion and suffers or gains the benefit of the medallion. All right, so what we're doing is we're rolling again. Now we're rolling on the magic item table, and we roll a number 3, another 3. We're looking here now at the medallion column of the magic item table, and which is here, and we've rolled a 3, and we come across oratory. Medallion of Oratory adds 3 to rolls on the negotiation table. That's great. That's for avoiding combat with monsters if the wearer is in the party when there is a negotiation. This modifier is cumulative with the other modifiers to the negotiation die roll. That's awesome. So we got something awesome from this medallion, and that's it. We were lucky here because some of them aren't so great. So I'll make a note of that and move on. So far our luck has been pretty good. All right, we finally encountered a wandering monster. We left this room where we saw the art. We retraced our steps, nothing, came to a new corridor counter, and there is a wandering monster here. So the procedure for that is we're going to be rolling on the monster table, and I actually think this is 2 dice. I need to check on that. Right, so we need to roll 2d6s for the wandering monster table. My white die is going to be the first die, and the green one's going to be the second. I'm going to do a nice shake and roll of that, and we got a 6 and a 2. Following across on this table for 6 and 2, we find that we've got wraiths, 1d3 worth of wraiths. So let's check it out and what that, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for my d3 rather than dividing. So we're getting 1, 2. We get 1 wraith. I'm going to find that, and we're going to have that encounter in the corridor here. Well, all things considered, this is not too bad at all. The wraith is going to end up with a strength of 1d6 plus 3, and it's going to have that 3 modifier to its attack roll. So let's see, first of all, how strong this thing is. And it's going to be 2 plus 3 is 5, not too bad. And we're going to make a note of that. The wraiths don't have any special abilities, so it is what it is, and it will inflict the wounds that it inflicts. There are other features to some of the monsters. For example, the vampires can charm you, and the Medusas can turn you to stone. So this is another way in which this game adds some relevant chrome to DeathMaze by that fact. So I set up to do some combat like this, and I changed my mind. First of all, I already showed you combat in DeathMaze. I don't need to do that again. But also, I'm realizing here that we're not going to combat this wraith at all. What we're going to do is we're going to negotiate with him, and basically we're going to force him to give us his treasure. And the reason that we can do that is because you remember my Gislin dwarf, this fellow right here, who's sort of the unofficial leader of my party, he has the +3 negotiation from that medallion that he's carrying. And in fact, I have another character who has a basic skill that was also a +3, and I think I have a couple of spells that are negotiating spells. So I'm going to negotiate, and I will show you that because I didn't do that in the DeathMaze video. Let me just move this out of the way so I don't mess up everything here. The first thing we're doing is we are consulting the monster characteristics chart, and we are looking down at the negotiation value here. The race negotiation value is really low, which is good for us because we need to subtract whatever the negotiation value number is from our roll on the table. So you can see if this was a Kronk, forget about it. We'd have to take 9 off of our roll. Direwolf, same deal, but this Wraith, we only take 2 off of our roll. And I'm going to use my Ghislain, who has his +3 already from that medallion that he's wearing. So we're basically ending up with a +1 on our roll. So we're going to do that. And let's check out the negotiation tables down here. So we can see basically on the die roll, we got failure, agreement, or intimidate. And we are looking for, well, we're really looking for intimidate. Because with intimidate, then not only does the monster leave us alone, but if it has treasure, it's got to give some of its treasure to us to avoid being killed. So that's really what we're looking for. And that means we got to get a die roll of 10 or more. And actually, I'm thinking, so I've got my +3 from this medallion, and I think I've got a spell here that I can cast. Let me just check that out. Oh, all right. We have this Daunt I could use. Now, this is going to cost my dwarf 3 health. This is going to take the place of the negotiation roll, and he's automatically intimidated, and he gives over all its treasure to us. Is it too early to do that? My dwarf has 8 health. It'll bring him down to 3. This spell may be resisted. The resistance value on my Wraith is only a 1. So this is the question. We can either use the spell, bring our dwarf's health from 8 down to 5 at the very beginning of the game, get all the treasure if it resists. It's got a resistance value of 1. This is a weak character, so it's got simply, if it rolls a 1, it resists, but if it rolls anything other than a 1, it doesn't. So that's a risk we take. Or we could use our benefit of the medallion that we're holding. And let's see, is there any other spell? I think that's the only spell we have. There were a couple of other spells involving this negotiation, but I don't think I actually took them. So one or the other, and obviously I'm spending a lot of time thinking about this, and for me, that's what makes this game fun. I think I got to go with it, because that's going to give us, he's going to have to give us all his treasure. Now, his treasure type is I/D. I think the first value is the wandering monster value. That's an I. Now, in DeathMaze, that means it's trapped, but we're not dealing with a chest or anything, so I think that's irrelevant. I'm going to confirm all this, but that's a lot of potential treasure here. Gold, jewels, magic items. We're pretty high up on this table, so this poor Wraith, who's pretty weak, is wandering around with a lot of stuff, and I think we're going to hopefully intimidate it from him. The only way we can really fail is by rolling a 1. So again, this is a luck-based game, so let's see what we get. We got a 3. We're good to go. We're going to intimidate this Wraith. He's going to be scared, run away, and he's going to drop all his treasure, which is going to be some combination of all this good stuff. Well, after all that, we died. Here's the 3rd level. Made it through the 2nd level. The 1st level ended up being pretty long. The 2nd level ended up being pretty short. And then we got to the 3rd level. And unfortunately, the monsters, due to the modifications in the rule book, they will level up. And when we get to, I'll just take a look here. I can't remember what the modifications are. By the time you're at the 3rd level, you're really kind of screwed. Looking here at the characteristics chart, the monster wound dealing and the combat bonus there in level 3, it's like too much to overcome. And the difficulty that I had, as I often do, was I kind of used that was my cat sneezing, but anyway, she's got allergies, go figure. I used, I dealt myself some wounds early on using some of these spells. It's just like they're too compelling not to try to use. I run into this problem. I remember now. I don't know the last time I played this. It was a while ago, but it's all coming back to me now that I kind of use the spells early on thinking that, I have a healing I had a healing spell, I had some armor, and figuring I would get some magic weapons that would help me, or magic items that would help me. And I did get some, but just, not really enough to help in the end. So, well, this is this is it. Kind of a fail. The game, as you could tell, I think from what I was saying, it still draws me in after all this time, and going through and finding the statues and the altars to the various guides and artwork. You really want to find this manuscript because then you get this special spell, which I actually never got, but the Wrath of God spell. If you could find that, sure, it's luck based. There's not a whole lot of skill involved. You have some modifications that you can bring to bear, but when you're rolling on a treasure table, for example, or for potions or medallions, I got lucky early on, as you saw in the gameplay, with some medallion that I got. Actually, this one, I got this dexterity thing early. I don't know that I showed that on video, but that really helped me. This 2 combat bonus, that ended up helping me a lot. I mean, that's what happens in this game. You'll get some things that will help a lot, and then of course, it depends on what monsters you run into and what type of special abilities they may have that will impact you. And if a Medusa turns you into stone and you didn't get that particular spell, you could be really damaged pretty badly. The game system itself, and I'll just flip back here one more time to give proper credit to the people who put this together. The game system itself, after all these years, for me, is still quite compelling. I'm just a sucker for the dungeon crawl, and even though, it could not be more basic in terms of the types of counters, the artwork, and the 2-color, it gets really exciting when you get somewhere and you say, oh, here's an altar. I mean, could that be more basic? Not really. It really couldn't. But it excites you by what it allows your imagination to bring to the story, and I'm glad that I ended up taking it out again, and I'm sure, in another year, I'll have it out again. So there you have it, from 1980, Ares Magazine, one of the great magazines in the gaming world, Citadel of Blood.